Good evening and welcome to another episode of Pressing Issues. Today is Sunday, April 18th. I am your host, Jason Diffendahl. And here tonight, we are having a special Pressing Issues episode. A Pressing Episode Issues. Yes, we are having issues too. Pressing Issues episode by overwhelming request from our viewers. We are having an episode all about DVC, Disney Vacation Club discussion, answer your questions, anything you guys want to hear. We're going to talk all about DVC this week. So let me introduce some of my panelists. We'll start with Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, everybody.
Stephanie is a DVC member since
2015.
2015.
And we are Home Resort is the Grand Floridian.
And Home Resort is the Grand. All right. And next we have Emma.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
And Emma is a DVC member since
My parents since 1994, before I was born. I know. That's sad. Anyway.
And then somewhere we have Axel.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Axel.
Glad to be back.
All right. Welcome back, Axel. Axel is a
Thank you
DVC
very much.
member since
2015.
2015, and he owns at the
Polynesian.
Awesome.
Polynesian.
Of course.
All right. And I've been a DVC member since the year 2000, and I have home resorts at Beach Club and Vero Beach. Before we get into the episode, I am having a problem seeing the chat.
Oh,
So
let me pull it up on my phone then.
So I don't know how we're going to take questions from the chat if I can't see the chat.
We can try.
So it might.
I got a question from I don't know, Kato Amasher. I'm not sure. Saying, financially speaking, how often does Disney raise prices on DVC properties associated? And if so, what's the percentage?
So that's a great question. All right, now I can see the chat, and it looks like, boy, there's a ton of questions I have to catch up on. All right, so we'll start with that one. So we were just talking about that right before the show. So Emma, when your parents bought into DVC in 1994, how much was it?
It was a little over $57 a point.
So there you go. I know that when DVC first went on sale in 1990, the price was in the 40s.
It was $48 for pre-sale.
$48.
I did look that up earlier. Yes.
So, so $48 in 1990. It went to $57 by 1994, and today, depending on your resort, it's over $200. So in the course of over 30 years, the price has gone up 600%. How about that?
Yes.
And with a minimum amount of points now, you have to have
Yes.
125.
It used to be more. The minimum used to be I really want to say it was 180, then they dropped it to 150, but they have to keep dropping the minimum number of points because people can't afford to buy in when the price keeps going up.
Right.
So anyway, all right. I'm gonna scroll back to the beginning of the chat, and I'm gonna browse through and make sure, because I don't want to miss anyone's questions. Remember when DVC gave you free park tickets? We were actually just talking about that right before the show.
We did,
too.
yeah. We did.
Yeah. So when Disney really in 1990 had no idea what they were doing with timeshares. They had no idea how timeshares worked. They had no idea how to run a timeshare. And so what happened was they built Old Key West, And in 1990, it wasn't even called Old Key West. It was just Disney Vacation Club. That was the only resort. And the price started at $48. And in order to entice people to buy in, they gave you free park tickets for every trip while you were booked at Old Key West. So basically, you got a package with a room and park tickets for everyone for the first 10 years. I think that went through 1999. So that is, yeah, that was pretty much. I mean, I remember in 1990 getting an envelope in the mail from I mean, it was addressed to my parents, but I got an envelope in the mail from DVC trying to sell me DVC. And I remember this really distinctly because why is everyone laughing? Because I remember things from 1990 and you weren't born yet, Emma?
I know.
But the envelope had Mickey and Minnie and Donald and Pluto, I think, in the corner in like silhouette. I know you've seen this DVC-ish like logo before, where they're holding suitcases and walking along, holding hands, right? Like there's 4 or 5 of them. And so the envelope had that in the corner of the front, and I thought it was really cute, and so I cut it out and I taped it on my desk. And that logo, that was from the very first DVC mailing that we got, and I tried to talk my parents into buying, and they didn't. So that was unfortunate, but that little cutout stayed on my desk for like 10 years until I got a new desk. But anyway, so yeah, that was 1990 when they were trying to sell, and they built Old Key West with insanely huge rooms because they wanted to differentiate DVC from the regular Disney resorts. And you got to remember, in 1990, there were no All-Stars, there were no Pop Century. So in the first moderate to open was Caribbean Beach, and that so they needed to build these rooms much bigger than their hotels in order to differentiate them. And so that's why the Old Key West rooms are gigantic compared to any other room on Disney property. That was another way to convince people to buy in, by saying, hey, you could get really, really nice accommodations, much better than, the Polynesian or the Contemporary, with much bigger rooms. So anyway, somebody else asked, when are they going to open the boat?
The boat?
The boat from Old Key West to...
Oh, the Sassagoula River boats.
Yes.
That's I think probably when Port Orleans reopens, whenever that is, because that all is one, that's one set of boats and one system. So that would be my guess. Does anyone know when Port Orleans is supposed to reopen? Do we have a date?
I don't think we have a date for Port Orleans. Somebody
No,
else
it'll be
said...
the last one in the line.
Somebody else in the chat said probably not until they stop doing temperature screenings.
That could be too.
Because that's kind of not an easy place to do temperature screenings. So that could be a problem.
But they could, because, the way that they have it right now, at least walking from Saratoga Springs, they funnel you back into a certain entrance of Disney Springs. So they could still do it based on where the pier is on that side.
Right. They would have to.
Springs.
So what's interesting is that with the temperature screenings, they also set up the security screenings. And that never was a thing before. So I can't imagine that even when the temperature screenings go away, that the security screenings will go away too. I think they're here to stay.
But that's for people coming from the parking lot, not from the resorts. Because if you hop off a resort bus, there's no security. It's just a temperature, and you're good.
Okay. So you think there won't be security screenings on anywhere
If you're coming
except in
from
the
a hotel.
parking garages if you're coming from a hotel. Okay.
Yeah.
So so if you want to take weapons into Disney Springs, get on a bus at the hotel, I guess is what that means, right, Axel? Like it seems like a big hole in their security to me.
I mean, it's the security is more for your random AK-47, hot dog machines, hot dogs itself, utter cold, something like that. Just keep it out.
Anyway.
They had security for the monorail at the Contemporary. They could put security into a
They
hotel.
could put security at the hotels.
They
sure
could.
could. They sure could.
As Paris has, by the way.
Yeah.
Every hotel.
No, I remember that. Yeah.
All right, so let's. There are a lot of people putting little bee emojis in the chat. I'm going to ignore those for now.
Why?
I'm going to ignore those for now. Here's a good question. So Rebecca May W says, we're staying at Vero Beach for the first time this weekend for a long weekend. I stayed at Vero Beach for the first time last year over the summer.
It's lovely.
It is. It's really lovely. I ended up liking it much more than I expected to, put it that way. So, it was really nice. I loved Vero. It's a great place. It's hard to book. Like,
it is.
I was actually, we're coming down in June, and I was going to try to book, like, a weekend at Vero in the middle of our trip. There's nothing available. So, if we don't get through this first half of the show without a rant, remind me, because I have a rant
About availability.
about availability. Yes. Yep. Jiminy Crockett asks, if we buy DVC from another owner, does the ownership expire 40 years after the original purchase, or when we purchase it? So when DVC first started in 1990, the ownerships were 40 years. So that would take you to 2030. As more resorts came online, they started changing it to, they started making it 40 years from when that resort opened. So then the ownerships got past 2030. Then they started making them 50 years. And so the ownership expires or ends, or whatever you want to call it, reverts back to Disney. Depends on the contract and when you bought it. But it doesn't matter if you buy it from someone else. It's already set in their contract, and that doesn't change. So part of, if you buy resale, part of the things to pay attention to is when does the contract expire? Because obviously if you're buying resale of Old Key West, you've actually only got like 9 years left on that contract. So there has been, Disney has, and I'm not sure whether this sort of stopped because of coronavirus or what, but they were offering to extend the original Old Key West contracts for some amount of money. You could extend it, and I don't know what the status of that is, or if they're still doing that, or if they did it and everybody could, obviously you could turn it down. And if you turned it down, then in 2030, your contract would just revert back to Disney. And so that's...
Yeah, I think there was a period... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Axel.
No, I was just thinking, would you think they would push on this now that we know that Reflections is not coming? At some point, they're going to need new inventory. It's already better that they have the resale contracts, because a friend of ours just bought into Animal Kingdom, something that we in 2015 were not able to do. We had to do with the contracts that were open. So I had the choice between Polynesian or Aulani. But now you can get any resort if you said, okay, this is the amount of points, and they have it, they will sell it to you. But on the other hand, they keep selling, and with no new resorts in sight, I don't know how that's going to go. But besides Aulani, it's going to be there for the next 20 years.
So actually, and what I'm really looking forward to actually is the DVC at the Disneyland Hotel. Now that I don't think is going to be a ton of inventory, so it's going to help a little bit, but not a lot.
Not much.
But so yeah, I think what is going to happen is that at some point, I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. All right, it just went away as soon as I put myself on mute. So at some point, they're going to run out of inventory, and this has actually been sort of talked about in the DVC community for years and years, simply because. So somebody's asking me to turn up my mic, and I'm wondering if I'm loud enough now or not. But I mean, my mic's up.
I can hear you clearly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you sound fine to me.
Maybe that was before I adjusted. I don't know how far back in the chat I am.
Well, to speak to the extension, if I may, real quick.
Yes, please.
I know that my parents opted not to. And I think there was a certain period of time that they were offering that, and they're not doing that anymore. At least to my knowledge. So, because I guess not enough people were interested in extending, so I think it was just. But, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the question is, are they going to? Okay, Mandy says it's better now. Good. Thank you, Mandy.
Yay.
One of the questions is, are they going to do that with other resorts? Because after Old Key West, you've got Boardwalk, and that
Beach Club
Boardwalk ends in 2042. Beach Club. Well, then you've got Vero in there somewhere too. I'm not sure when Vero's contracts end. Might be 2042 also. And then you've got Beach Club in there. You've got Wilderness Lodge in there actually first. So, you know, we're getting to the point where there's 10 years left on a lot of these contracts, and I'm wondering if they're going to ask more owners if they want to extend. And so here's the question. And Disney Mitten just asked this question. What are your best guess they do with all the resorts ending in 2442? Demolish and rebuild a new resort? Reissue inventory? Give current members first priority? Oh, yeah, Hilton Head. Moogle just said Hilton Head. I totally forgot about Hilton Head.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So, in terms of... It's hard to say what they're going to do for Vero and Hilton Head. But... my guess is, especially for Old Key West, because that's going to come up first. They're not going to demolish Old Key West. I guarantee. I think what my guess is what they're going to do is they're going to take all the points that come back and they're going to resell them. And they're going to charge way more than they charged in 1990 for these points. But they will absolutely just resell those points, and like Axel said, right? So we've got Olani is still on sale, and then we're gonna we don't have Reflections anymore, but we will have the DVC at the Disneyland Hotel, and then depending on how long, I actually can see that one selling pretty quickly, but then after that, I don't know what they're gonna do.
There's always been a rumor of building a second tower at Bay Lake.
Yep, there's the Bay Lake South Tower rumor. The question is, how long does it take them to build versus when are they going to need the inventory to sell? Because there are very strict state restrictions on timeshares that you can't sell them. You can't sell timeshare interest until the buildings are actually built. So...
And the problem is, and especially with something like Bay Lake, but the issue right now that we're having is Riviera. Because Riviera was for sale, so people could buy into Riviera. And then if you see the points, all of a sudden this tiny studio at Riviera is almost the same amount of points as a one-bedroom at Animal Kingdom. So what people do is they buy into Riviera
because that's what's available.
Hey, points are better over on the other side, so I'm not going to stay here, which makes it really hard for all the other owners. And especially like if right now, and that's something that I've seen, especially owning back when we were in Belgium and being able to plan like a year ahead and doing like the 11-month window. Right now, if you don't, there's not much left. We had an opportunity with the whole pandemic that all of a sudden there was a lot of availability, but that is going away. And if I look and like Vero Beach, like you said, or even Hilton Head, it's fully booked. And that's a lot of people that bought into more expensive resorts with higher points per night. But then they all want to go to those same places. And yes, there's availability in Riviera Resort, but who wants a tiny studio where the bed falls down for 31 points?
So yeah, that Riviera is the biggest. Riviera is the biggest problem in that regard, because Riviera's point cost per room are so out of whack with the rest of DVC. That it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for anyone, whether no matter where you own. It doesn't make sense for anybody who owns DVC to ever book at Riviera, because it's not. I mean, unless you love the resort and it's your favorite place to go, and there's no way that you're going to stay anywhere else except Riviera. I mean, I imagine there's a handful of those people out there, but otherwise,
I've stayed there.
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem staying there. I just think
yeah, we didn't do it on points. We did it because there was a discount for paying cash.
Okay, so you got
it was right when it was open.
Okay, right. Somebody asked, isn't Riviera in line point-wise with Poly and Grand Floridian? No, I think it's more.
No, it's more. It is.
More.
It is
the Grand is the
crazy
most.
how. Yeah.
The Grand
it's
is
crazy how much.
Riviera is like the second. Yeah.
Okay.
But the Grand has a lot of benefits that the Riviera does not. That's the problem. Right? The Grand, you can walk to the Magic Kingdom or get on the monorail. The Riviera, you can't walk to anywhere, and you can get on the Skyliner, which doesn't run in those thunderstorms. I mean, I would stay at Riviera. I looked to book at Riviera when we were coming down, a bunch this past year. I looked to book there. I would stay there. I wouldn't stay there for a week, because the point differential of a week at Riviera versus anywhere else. Like if I need 2 nights or something, I would do it at Riviera just to try it out, really. But otherwise, like the point cost for a regular room at Riviera compared to anywhere else is sort of ridiculous.
Yeah. Like it's one thing to just stay there for a night to do it. Actually, Shannon in the chat mentioned like the whole like split stay, how she has knows friends who have done split stays, and like as someone who our family, we like actually staycation there. Like we bring groceries, we do the whole bit. So like a split stay for someone like us, and I think a lot of especially old school DVC families, that's not really something that's practical. And especially when you're going into a tiny room at Riviera, like it just doesn't seem to make sense for me. So I mean, again, like one night is fine just to do it, but if you like have all this other stuff that if you have a different way that you like to vacation that doesn't suit that room, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you this: we've done split stays, and we have 4 kids, so you would think we have a lot of stuff, right, to move. But Disney will transfer your luggage and any groceries.
That's true.
So what we do is we pack up, we leave at 11 o'clock, and we go to the park, and then they just transfer those to the next hotel wherever we're going. So we'll do like maybe 2 or 3 nights. Actually, we're doing this in September. We're going to stay at the Grand for 2 or 3 nights, and then we're going over to Wilderness Lodge.
Nice.
Yeah, Boulder Ridge.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, I've done split stays just to try out resorts, and it can be a hassle. It depends what kind of sort of mood you're in. if you're planning to go to the parks, open to close every day, which, back in the day that used to be a big commitment. Now it's like you're only there for 8 hours. But back when you could go parks open to close, and that was like 8 a.m. to midnight, and you really only used your hotel as a place to sleep and shower. And Disney would move your luggage, like you said, Stephanie. Then split stays were not hard to do. You just had to plan for them. But if you're the kind of person that spends a lot of time at the resort and you get groceries and everything, well, then a split stay is a little bit more of a hassle because you've got to move all your stuff. So,
and that's one of the things that I'm actually still wondering if, because you think about when we bought our DVC, we know that we like to spend time in the resorts. I think right now, if friends ask me like, "Hey, DVC, is it worth it or not?" And it's like, well, if you're gonna come and that you want to spend all the time you get in a park, morning, evening, and even hop on to Universal, then I'm not sure if DVC is the thing for you. You need to enjoy the resorts, because over a time span of 50 years, if it's just for the money, it won't change a thing whether you're staying at a moderate or what is the value resort, because it won't make that big of a difference. Don't forget, you have your annual dues that go up every year with a bit. You have your points. So if you consider all that, and you're gonna spend just the time in your room to sleep and that's it, then I'm sure if DVC is the right way to go as the day of today, or like we've been for the last 7-8 years, where points are not cheap.
Right.
And the rooms they bring on are more expensive every time in points.
Yeah.
So the only counterpoint that I have to that is, and you would have to crunch the numbers, is if you want to go multiple times in a year, and you would have to crunch the numbers of how much that would be per year with your points, and again, the maintenance fees and the dues, and then what it would be to actually pay cash for the room. So it's a lot of number crunching, but if you're someone who likes to go, say, to all the festivals, and you're going to Disney like 3 times a year, like once for Flower and Garden, well, I guess 4 now because of Festival of the Arts, but let's say you go to 3, Flower and Garden, Food and Wine, and Festival of the Holidays, then you have to take into account how much that's going to cost in your room, depending on how long you're going to stay. But I mean, with the points, you have the flexibility of, you can get a studio somewhere, like especially if you have a small group, we fit 4 adults actually in a Polynesian studio when it was totally fine. But if you're going for a festival over a long weekend, then it might make sense to do that, because you can spread out those points over the year, and it might be either equal or maybe even be less than, depending on what kind of contract you're buying, than what it would cost to pay in cash. But again, number crunching, lots of math. So
yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, sorry, Jason.
No, go ahead, Stephanie.
You have to know how many points, right? Like you're saying, if you're going to say, oh, I have 4 people, we go 4 people every time, then a studio is going to fit us perfectly. In fact, a studio typically will fit 5 people, whereas a 1-bedroom will usually have 4, which doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, the 1-bedroom has a washer and dryer, which is what I need. But anyway, but my biggest piece of advice that I tell everybody that asks about DVC is, you have to know your break-even point. When you say, I'm going to go every year and I'm going to use points every year, this is how much I need for a week, or however long I typically go. And typically it is a week. And of course you have the minimum of 125 at this point. So you want to see that price, and then you want to push it out and say, okay, well, I'm paying, like 125 points at the Riviera. I looked it up. It's $201 a point. So you're automatically paying $25,000. Okay. And that's 1 week, maybe not even that, depending on what time of year you go, So you have to know, when am I going to break even? For us, we had 3 kids at the time, and we ended up having a 4th. So our points got smaller in that sense, because we have to get bigger rooms now. But we, in 2015, we got 132 points, because that was 1 week in the fall at the Grand Floridian. And now that doesn't even help us if we want to go in the February or in the summertime. And it was going to be 13 years. 13 years was our break-even point. We said we're going to go maybe every other year. Well, now we go multiple times a year. So we are not staying on point every time. We do the DVC rental, which we might get into talking about that. But we go through a DVC rental company, and I've had great experiences with them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people in the chat talking about the perks for being a DVC too. So I want to talk about those. But yeah, I think let me just address the topic that we're talking about right now with the value. You like Axel said. Axel was right on, where you could probably stay in a value resort for less money, although value resorts are getting kind of expensive now.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, that really is one of the key, questions about DVC is what is the rate? So you buy in, right? And there's a buy-in price, but then you pay dues, and the dues go up every year, but they don't go up like Disney room rates go up. And so at some point, the value resort, when we bought it in the year 2000, I remember actually, so it was like 2004, we went, and Pop Century had just opened, and we got a really good rate at Pop Century. This was like February, so it was like nobody was going, because it was 2004, so you still had it was after 9/11, and people still weren't traveling very much, so we got a room rate at Pop Century in 2004 that was like $48 a night. You go to look at what the room rates are at Pop Century today, and they're over $200 a night. Now, I will tell you that my DVC dues have not quadrupled since 2000. That's for sure. And so you've got to. That's one key thing. I mean, the better you are with spreadsheets, the more you'll be able to tell for yourself whether DVC makes sense for you. And if you're, go ahead, Ag.
For everybody who's looking into buying, when we talk about this, and when I say this, I'm talking about buying your points outright cash. DVC has this great payment plan at only 15%. So you end up paying quite a bit more down the road if you don't put it right there on the table. So it's always a lot of calculating and knowing what you pay, especially if you're going to take the payments through Disney. You might end up with a less pleasant surprise.
Right.
Absolutely. It's more of a prepaid vacation plan than it is a timeshare, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Because once we've gone to Disney, same thing every year or every other year. And I mean, this year, because of what happened with the points in the pandemic, we went multiple times a year, which was crazy, and fun, but crazy. But so that's the other thing is if you know that Disney is where you want a vacation and that's what you want, that's also another big factor because that's where your money is going. So that's, it should make sense that you would want to go there every year or every other year.
Yeah. I think the other thing about DVC is that if you are a bigger family like Stephanie and you need to get a 2-bedroom or you need 2 hotel rooms if you're going to stay at the All-Stars, you get one of those family suites or whatever, right? Those are really pricey. And so it's really hard for a family that's larger than 4 people. It's really hard to get a resort room at Disney that's not really expensive, right? And so I think if you're going to book a 2-bedroom all the time, the only really easy way to do that is through DVC. Obviously you can rent DVC rooms for cash, but they're super expensive and the 2-bedrooms are outrageous. So if you need a 2-bedroom because you have a large family or you plan to travel with your parents or grandparents or whatever, DVC is really kind of the only way to do that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But if you're a family of 4 like mine, and you're happy staying in a room at Pop Century, then the question is, well, I don't know if DVC is really worth it for you. 10 years ago, I might have said, yeah, sure. I know we had, when Bay Lake Tower first went on sale in like 2008 or 9?
I think 2009, right? Was that when it was actually built?
I thought it was 2008, but anyway, around that time frame. Somebody in the chat will probably know.
Yeah.
I know Bay Lake Tower points were about $110, and a friend of mine and I sat down and did a calculation based on renting out DVC points. So Stephanie talked about the rental process, and we at that time rental points were going for like $12 to $13 a point. And so a friend of mine and I sat down and looked at between the cost of points and the dues and the potential increase in dues over time, whether we could actually just buy Bay Lake Tower, never use it, just buy it and rent out the points every year, whether we could make money or not. And in 2009, when Bay Lake Tower points were $110, it was really close. Like it was pretty much the break even. Put it this way: the break even point for that was well over 20 years out of a 50-year contract. So
Mike says Bay Lake Tower was 2009.
2009. I saw that. Yep. Thank you. So I mean, at $110 a point, the break even point would be over 20 years out of a 50-year contract. So, that's reasonable. But from an investment point of view, whether you are going to invest $25,000 in a DVC, or you can put $25,000 into some, mutual fund and get 4 or 5 or 6% interest a year, right? You've got to look at the time cost of money over those years, right? And so that pushed the break-even point closer to 30 years, if you factor that in. And so we basically decided, well, if it takes 30 years to break even, then we've got all this money tied up and we don't actually see returns on our investment for another 30 years. That's not really a great investment. So that was the analysis in 2009 when points were like $110, and now they're almost double that at some resorts. So I can't possibly imagine. I mean, true that rental prices have gone up to somewhere like $17, $18 a point now, sometimes $19 a point.
20 to 21.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if you want to take advantage of an 11 month booking window, they definitely charge a premium for that.
That's right. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, it's you really have to look into the math, and you really have to look into the math. You have to understand how you're going to use the points. Right, like you did, Stephanie. You bought the number of points it would take to go a week every year in the time of year that you normally go, for the room size that you normally buy.
I don't know if you guys have on your contracts a guaranteed week. I have a guaranteed week built into mine.
No, I don't. But I'd like to know how that works.
Well, basically, if I tell them if I use it, then I use it. But if I tell them ahead of time, I want to go in February instead of my guaranteed week in October, then that's fine. But if I don't tell them that, it's as if I'm going without any repercussion. Like it'll be used basically. So I always have to call them and say, I'm using my points. I'm going to bank my points, whatever it is prior to that. If I forget, then they're gone.
So how far in advance do you have to tell them that you're not actually going to go in October?
I think a couple of weeks. I don't think it's that far in advance.
Okay. That's interesting. That wasn't an option before, you know.
You need to ask for it. They do not put it on the option table.
Okay.
Right now, it's like you ask for. We have friends that got their guaranteed week at the Polynesian. They never go. They're military, so they stay over at Shades of Green for a fraction of the price and just rent out their points. And when they feel like staying at the Polynesian, they can stay. You can still negotiate. You can still ask for that guaranteed week, but it's not that they promote it and put it on the table.
No, I mean, it was never a thing in 2001 and 2005 when we added on. I mean, that's a relatively recent invention. I don't know when the guaranteed week started. It doesn't surprise me that they don't like put it out there and offer it, but it didn't exist at some point in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I know we don't have that. I mean, I know you have to bank or, use by a certain date in your use year, but other than that, I'm like, we don't have a guaranteed week.
No. No. I mean, when I was looking at resale contracts, it says in the contract if there's a guaranteed week or not with the contract, but I didn't really know what that meant.
But to the point of your investment, I don't think, and I definitely wasn't one of them, and I did calculate a bit, but I'm not sure if there's a lot of people that go into that DVC office and say like, hey, this is going to be a great investment. It's like, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of DVC and guarantee my vacation for the next 50 years, and it's going to be awesome. And afterwards, you do some math and then calculations. Like, okay, it's still cool. It guarantees me that I'll be able to go to Disney for the next 50 years, and at least there's this certainty that every year I'm going to get those points, and I'll be able to do something with it. That was until this year. Because honestly, I'm happy that I don't need to worry about my points right now living in Belgium, because there's some people over in Europe, they bought into DVC, and a lot of people just go once every 3 years because they bank, they use, they borrow. Now with the 50% borrow rule, it's like all of a sudden your vacation is shorter because you can just not borrow all those points.
Yeah.
So that's something I always. Sorry, Axel.
No worries. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's something that I definitely looked in the fine print on before I signed, and it definitely says in there that Disney reserves the right to stop the banking process or cut back on the amount of points borrowed, and that's from 2015, and that never happened until this year.
Yep.
So.
Yeah,
right. Because of the pandemic.
Everything that happened this year is totally. No one has any idea. No one had any idea whether any of this was going to happen. So I mean, the lawyers put that into the contract, not really having any idea when Disney might need to use that, but they had it and they needed to use it. But it is a weird thing. Axel, I just wanted to mention one of the things that you said, and this may lead into my rant for tonight. If you buy in and think that you're getting a guaranteed vacation every year for the next 50 years, that may be true, but it may not be exactly what you think. So, if I wanted a guaranteed vacation and I wanted it in June this year and I wanted to go to Vero Beach because I own at Vero Beach, it's not happening because Vero Beach is booked. Right? Like if you want to say that it's a guaranteed vacation every year, you have to be ready to book at the 11-month window as soon as you can, because if you don't and things get booked up, it becomes really difficult to use your points. And we talked about Riviera and how points are expensive at Riviera. And honestly, I think Grand Floridian falls into this category too, because points are really expensive to use at Grand Floridian. And so when I first bought into DVC, we had Old Key West, Vero Beach, Boardwalk, and Beach Club and Wilderness Lodge. They were the resorts. The difference, and so I was looking at the point charts like in October, because we would go in the fall a lot. An Old Key West studio in like September was 8 points. And a Boardwalk and Beach Club studio in September was 12 points a night. And so the difference, obviously there's a premium for like Boardwalk and Beach Club because it's near Epcot and you can walk to Epcot. But so the points varied between 8 and 12. And that was fine. Then things kept getting worse and worse as more resorts came online, and now you have like Riviera. And how much is a one night studio at Riviera in the fall? I think it's like
You want me to look it up?
Sure. I think it's like 20 some points.
Probably. Points.
Just a studio or a tower studio?
I don't care.
The tower studio is the crappy one.
Okay. Wait. 2021, 2022 DVC points for Riviera. Okay. So, it's making me accept cookies. Okay. And you mean for October, Jason?
Yeah.
So, a weekly in a tower studio to stay a week is 106 points.
Okay.
So weekday, like per night, that's 14, and weekend is 18 in the teeny tiny
and
tower.
The tower
studio.
that sleeps too, right?
Right.
And what about in the normal size studio, not the closet?
In the deluxe studio, it's 18 for a weekday, or I don't know what S&P is exactly on this points chart.
Preferred room, but
there we go. Standard and preferred. So standard is 18. Thank you. And 22 is for preferred.
Right. Okay.
Weekday, and then it goes up to 20 and 27 respectively on the weekend.
Okay.
For a studio.
So now, when I bought into Beach Club, I thought, well, I'd be willing to pay 12 points a night at Beach Club instead of 8 points a night at Old Key West to get the access to walk to Epcot. That, to me, that's a good deal, right? Now you look at it, and what do you get? You're not paying 12 points, you're paying 18 or 20 points to stay at Riviera. But what do you get for more than twice as many points as Old Key West? You get the Skyliner? Like, at that point, wouldn't you rather just pay 12 points and stay at Boardwalk or Beach Club? Why pay 18 to 20 points to stay at Riviera? You can't walk anywhere. And so...
Right.
And so
there's more inventory, though, at Riviera than Beach Club. Beach Club is
sure
really
there is.
fast.
Boardwalk is huge, though. There's plenty of inventory at Boardwalk.
That's true.
The problem is that because there's all of these different rooms, and the point values are drastically different and don't actually compare with the actual value of the rooms, because Disney is legally restrained from changing the point values of rooms. You've got Old Key West that cost 8 points for a studio in a weekday in September, and now that they've seen DVC become so popular that they can get away with charging 22 points for a weekday in September in a studio at Riviera, you've got the problem that everyone that bought into Riviera is unless you have oodles of cash and 4 million points at DVC that you just have to waste them somehow, everybody's going to try to make economical use of their points, right? And so, why? Like, if you asked me, do I want to spend 12 points? Do I want to spend 8 points at Old Key West or 12 points at Beach Club? That's kind of a value proposition that is pretty even. If you say, do you want to spend 8 points at Old Key West or 20 points at Riviera, that to me is a no-brainer. There's nothing at Riviera that makes it worth that premium.
Right.
You know, I could stay a night at Old Key West and a night at Beach Club for the same price that they're charging for one night at Riviera. That makes no sense to me. And so the problem is, and so that's part of the problem. The rest of the problem is Aulani, because Aulani is an enormous resort, and people that bought at Aulani do not go every year. I don't know anyone, I don't know anyone whether they own at Aulani or not, that takes a Hawaiian vacation every year, unless maybe they have family there, right? And so anybody that bought at Aulani is not using their points at Aulani every year. And so that means...
sorry. That's the case with Vero and Hilton Head too. Is not everyone's going there every year.
No, but they're different, and I'll explain why. The problem is that if you bought points at Aulani and you're not going to go to Aulani every year, that puts more demand on the Walt Disney World resorts. And so the problem, and the reason that I'm actually really upset that they canceled Reflections, is because the Walt Disney World resorts are in the highest demand. And that makes it hard to book anything at the 7-month window.
7?
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
And so what happened over time is that when I first bought in 2000, we could book pretty much anywhere we wanted at the 7-month window, like very easily. We only had 4 choices, but we could book all of them at the 7-month window. Now, actually, in the early 2000s, what you said, Emma, about Vero Beach was absolutely true. That Vero had a lot of points that people didn't use at Vero every year. And so that put a strain on the Walt Disney World resorts too. But eventually, because there were more and more and more DVC members, now Vero is actually really hard to book, and so is Hilton Head, because those resorts are relatively small compared to the number of DVC members, which wasn't the case in the year 2000, but it certainly is the case now. Which is why Disney owned 3 times as much land in Vero Beach as the resort takes up, and they had plans to build out many more rooms at Vero Beach. But because of that problem, that people who bought at Vero weren't booking there, bookings were very, very low at Vero for the first 15 years of its existence. They sold off those extra plots of land. Now they probably wish they had them, because Vero is very popular compared to how big it is. But so the same, the problem is that there's not a level, there's not an even balance between the demand for Walt Disney World Resort DVC rooms and the availability, because they built a lot of resorts with a lot of points, either not at Walt Disney World, or they build them at Walt Disney World, but the rates are so extreme that no one wants to stay there.
Right, and then the problem with... I'm just going to say, and then, like, California doesn't really help either, because, I mean, well, at least as of right now, they only have the Grand Californian, again, another small resort, and, I mean, who knows what the status is of the tower that's going to be added to the Disneyland hotel. So, you know, and going to Disneyland, at least from... I remember, no matter how much I loved going to Disneyland, it was a very quick, like, you could get it done in a couple days. Boom, done. It wasn't like somewhere, you know, you would usually go for a week if you're someone that's coming from out of state. You know, we did all kinds of other things around California instead. So, you know, that's the other thing, is that people could use their points there, but they're not using that many because they only need like a couple nights and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, Grand California only has like 50-some rooms. It's really, really, really small. So it's usually very, very hard to book, although we took a trip in 2017, and I booked at the 7-month window, and we got a 2-bedroom for a week. And
wow.
It was doable, so it's kind of doable. But the problem is that happened with Riviera is that the point charts are way out of whack compared to what they should be for the overall value of the room, right? And that makes it very very common for Riviera owners to want to stay at other resorts at Walt Disney World, and that makes it hard for everyone else to stay at resorts at Walt Disney World because they don't want to stay at Riviera and get gouged by the point cost. So that's the problem. I know that they didn't really release point charts for Reflections, but I know for a fact that it was going to be lower than Riviera in terms of points per night, right? Like it was going to be lower than Riviera, it was going to be lower than Grand Floridian, it was going to be lower than Polynesian.
Wow.
Because there was no real amenities, right? There's no monorail, there's no Skyliner, there's nothing. So those point charts were going to go back to something that's kind of more reasonable, and that would have meant more inventory of rooms at a reasonable price at Walt Disney
And
World.
more sales, potentially, yeah.
Well, obviously more sales, right? Like they'd have more points to sell, but you'd also have more rooms to use your points on that weren't a complete ripoff like Riviera was.
Jason?
Yep.
There was a question in the chat, and it's not so much a question, rather a statement, that Riviera Resale indeed cannot book any other resorts. So
that
if
is
you
true.
buy resale Riviera, you will stay at Riviera,
right?
Period.
Which means
but that's just that's one of the reasons why Disney is now what Disney didn't do before and they do now. I think also because of Reflections, is they need inventory. So if you want to get out of a contract, Disney wants to buy your contract. They can polish it up, add some years, add a membership, and sell it on their own terms. And that's one of the reasons why they make it harder for you to resell.
Right.
So you would sell back to Disney, and they can do their thing with it. That's, in my opinion, the way that they're playing it right now.
Well, and that's the way that they've been playing it for years. So this we'll talk about, because there was questions. Actually, maybe we should take a break and then we'll come back and talk about we'll come back and talk about DVC perks and benefits and how they've changed over the years. But let's take a break real quick so that I can run and get a drink, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsor, Spike.
When I find myself at Flower and Garden, looking for some food to eat, I gotta get a spork with Spike the Bee. 58 pallets of unsold units standing right in front of me. Here for his 5th straight festival, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee. Perfect for any food type, Spike the Bee. And while it's good for soup and chili, he's also perfect for poutine and Tupelo honey spoon bread, Spike the Bee. Plastic forks and spoons are wasteful, and they can't ever hope to be that versatile festival flatware, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. For blood orange margaritas, Spike the Bee.
How do you eat that with a spork?
Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. Disney hopes you'll finally purchase Spike the Bee.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the musical interlude.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Chelsea says, I thought we'd have to riot. No. You can almost always hear Spike the Bee on this show if you're patient. I'm not as crotchety as Tom is about it. I don't need to charge people $300 just to hear Spike the Bee. I'd be happy if you just hit the like button while you're here. That would make me happy. So, let's talk about DVC benefits. This came up in the chat quite a bit, and benefits actually changed over time. And so, obviously, we said in the beginning, you could, when you bought DVC at Old Key West, you would get free park passes for the first 10 years. That was a benefit that went away. In the 2000s or so, everybody who bought DVC would get a membership card, blue DVC membership card. I don't have mine around, or I'd show you, but it's blue.
I don't either.
The designs have changed quite a bit over time too, and I have like 5 different looking DVC member cards. But you'd get a member. Oh, there Axel's showing us his.
Hey, there it is.
That's the current looking one, which is kind of boring and not exciting.
This is the current
Cover
one.
up Axel's name so you can't see anything. But that's the blue membership card. And that... so that membership card gets you some perks. It gets you discounts. It gets you into the DVC lounge. Yeah, at Imagination. And so, but it's not easy to get that blue card anymore. So it used to be everybody that bought DVC, and whether you bought it from Disney or resale, everybody would get the blue card. And then at some point around 2010, they started, actually it might have been before 2010, they started to restrict benefits if you bought resale. And like Axel said right before the break, they've been looking for ways to restrict the resale market, really for the past 20 years at this point now, because the resale market is selling points at less than Disney sells them. And so clearly Disney wants you to buy from Disney because they make more money than if you buy resale, where they don't make any money. But they also make more money because they charge you more than if you bought the resale points. And so at some point they started to restrict the benefits of buying resale. At some point you can they stopped giving the annual pass holder discounts to resale buyers. And then at some point they stopped sending out blue cards. So you could be a DVC member and not even have a DVC membership card, which means you couldn't get into the Imagination Lounge, you couldn't get any of the discounts, and all those things. And so the whole idea was because Disney didn't want people to buy resale. And so over the years, they've really started to treat resale buyers as almost second-class citizens, and you don't get very many perks. If you buy resale, they also then put restraints on the resale contracts themselves, that if the contract was sold, like at Riviera, if the contract is sold, you can't use those points anywhere but Riviera. Which means, and so honestly, that made a lot of people angry and made a lot of people not want to buy Riviera because it actually seriously hurts the resale value of a Riviera contract.
Right. And with how much it costs per point, like honestly, the biggest perk, especially if you're trying to be flexible and use your points, especially when park tickets keep going up and up and up, and the average cost keeps going up, even though they didn't like increase prices this year, is having that access to the Gold Pass and having it at the Florida resident rate, which that's a huge perk to not have to pay the $1,000 whatever how much the platinum pass costs. The premium price. So it just like, to me, you have to consider that into buying from Disney, which is kind of sad because you can get more of a discount on resale depending on who you're buying from, but it's again numbers. Got to crunch the numbers and do the math.
Yes. And I believe that was the Florida Pass versus the Florida Pass versus like a 10-day ticket, right? So if you were going to go multiple times a year, or you're going to stay longer than 10 days, then that was where that really came into play. Sorry, Axel.
And right now, with the contracts they sell, you need to buy a minimum amount of points, because what some people did before was buying resale and then still buying from Disney, but like 50 points, so they can have and the resale contract and the benefits of having a membership card. But that went up, and I think they're already at 125 points you need to buy from Disney.
Yes.
Yep. Right.
Yep. So that's what people would do. People would buy a resale contract cheap, and then they'd add on 25 points directly from Disney to get around that restriction. And so then Disney changed the rules to say, well, you need to buy 125 points from Disney in order to get the blue card. That really put the kibosh on that sneaky workaround. You could do what I did and bought points and then added on points and had a whole lot of points and then went and bought a resale contract. And now I have a ton of points, but I still have the blue card. But in my problem is I need a ton of points because Tom keeps using all of my points.
True. Oh my God.
Just make him pay the rental fee, right?
Well, he does. Yes.
There you go. Yeah, make him pay the dues or something.
I rent out the points to him for $75 a point. I know you can get them for $22 online. Mine are premium points.
Bougie points, if you will.
There you go. That's right.
Right.
My points come with the benefit of a fantastic Main Street electrical parade fiber optic light up thingamajig from Disneyland.
Awesome.
But so anyway. But yeah, so I mean, if you're going to buy a lot of points, it honestly makes the most sense to buy 125 from Disney and then buy the rest resale. And you'll end up with two contracts, and if they're different use years, you'll have two different membership numbers, and it's a pain to juggle sometimes, but that will save you a lot of money. And if you only want to buy like 125 points or less, if you buy resale, you're going to lose out on a lot of perks. Again, that's a factor in your decision. You got to put that into the spreadsheet, because if you're going to buy annual passes, Brian's here. All right, cool.
Hey, Brian! Woo!
I got to figure out how to add Brian in. But if you're going to buy annual passes, that's a big discount, and you got to factor that in. So while I figure out how to get Brian,
actually, I'll talk about another perk.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Shannon. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that you also get 20% off on merchandise, and then you get 10% off of certain dining locations as well. It's not every dining location, but it's usually table service.
Right, and you get the perk of being able to buy a Tables in Wonderland card when if that ever comes back, who knows? That might be something that's taken away. Oops. But that's a whole it's a whole dining kind of thing. But I wanted to talk about Brian, we're hat twins. Anyway. I wanted to talk about Moonlight Magic for a second. And like that's a perk that I'm sad that they weren't able to do this year, whether that's, again, a money thing or a COVID thing, I don't know. But as far as like how expensive the like hard ticket events are in the evenings, it was nice to have the Moonlight Magic events, even though they were extremely hard to book because they book quick. Just to get that extra time in the parks with limited capacity without having to pay the $100-something price for one of those events. So,
and they would also do after hours. You would get at least a $5 to $10 break on those after hours.
You get discounts on the after hours. You get discounts on the Halloween and Christmas party tickets. So there's a fair number of discounts that you miss out on. But again, you got to decide if those would be discounts you would take advantage of or not before you calculate whether they're something that you want to factor into your cost calculation. So welcome, Brian.
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Well, we took it on the chin. Sorry to be a little bit late, everybody. We had a couple of away games that got changed time-wise. So tough day at the office, but I'm happy to report that the Rally B is still in effect. For those of you who don't know about the Rally B, whenever we need some runs, Coach Layton will start singing Spike the B while he's coaching the bases. And I am happy to say that as amazing as that, ridiculously amazing as that sounds, we did have a five-run inning. So I don't know why I don't just sing it every inning, but I'm sort of afraid to jinx it. So we still lost, but we had a winning run at the plate. So it was tough day at the office, but happy to be around people and heard Axel's voice. I was listening on the bus and everything. So it was. I appreciate you letting me in, Jason, as a late arrival. So sure. I was enjoying your DVC rant very much so. I definitely have some experience with that in terms of what our family does.
Yeah, because you bought resale, right? You're a resale.
Yeah,
owner.
we buy points. So my wife and I, what we will do is, mainly my wife, will go and she has a couple of people that we've purchased points privately from. And I know that's kind of risky in terms of that process. But we have people that, it's funny because if you go on the Diz boards and stuff like that, a lot of times, if you're somebody that is dishonest when you do it, you don't really last very long.
No.
So for us, like the people that we've dealt with over the years are people that have references and contracts that they send out and all that stuff. And we've been very fortunate in terms of, especially with the overstock of all the points and everything. We typically travel in a pack of 5 or 6, so we can sort of make things happen on that end. But it allows us to stay a lot of times at those deluxe resorts that normally we wouldn't be able to stay in. So my children are extremely spoiled. They don't understand what reality is.
Yeah.
But let's stay at the Animal Kingdom Lodge where the animals are outside our door. That's really cool, Daddy. It's like, yeah, yes. We don't normally get to do that. Don't get used to this. So now we're spoiled. Now we want to do the monorail resorts only. But we've been able to, the last few times, get points from people that, a lot of times too, when there's that resale, window of when people's dues are due, a lot of times you can get some of those deals last minute because people are scrambling to try to pay those dues off. And a lot of times you can negotiate what you need in terms of points and whatnot. So we've been very fortunate and very lucky that way. I'm sure that cash cow is going to kind of dry up once this inventory kind of gets depleted a little bit, but
I think so. Yeah,
we're able to take advantage of it, especially as annual pass holders, where you're just like, okay, well, we already have the passes, so for us to go, we just need a place to stay, kind of deal. So we were able to kind of take the car and drive even all the way from Connecticut and just say, all right, road trip, kiddos, let's go, let's jump in. We literally woke them up in the morning and said, guess where we're going today, kids? So, and they're like, down the street. We're like, not really.
It's a long street.
Oh, that's great. That's so cute. I love that.
Yeah, and they're spoiled. My wife's car has Wi-Fi, so they look down and they look back up, and then we're in another state, kind of thing. So, but it's something for a young family that we have. For us, it's really financially beneficial for us. We would never buy into DVC because it doesn't really work, like you said, Jason, with if you have more than 4 people. But we've been able to stay in a lot of really good places that we probably shouldn't have. Or wouldn't normally be able to. So it's I was fortunate enough to stay at the boardwalk at one of those experiences. I was getting dinner, and we were walking back, and I literally was just checking my phone, and all of a sudden somebody yelled, "Hey, that's a cool shirt!" And it was actually Tom Corliss. I was wearing my Secret Swiss bobsled training facility shirt. It was just totally random. And he literally was just like, "That's a great shirt." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I know that voice." And I kind of panicked, moved around, and took a selfie with him. And he's like, "Who's this weirdo following me on my live stream?" But I actually wasn't. I just happened to be standing there. So I've had that. The luck of the live stream has been literally whatever park somebody's in. If Axel's in a park somewhere or I'm literally in the wrong park. And that was before I was like, really? Like the one part I missed Eric a bunch of times. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, how am I missing you? It was like a day behind everybody. So now that we can park hop to the utter park, as Axel would say, I'll be able to kind of do some of that. And as you know, I volunteered for the June 5th and 6th gimbal holding of the Hershey Park.
Yeah,
I'm very excited. Emma's going to go. We're going to take photos.
I am so excited. Oh my gosh.
I cannot wait. I'm going
wait.
to make sure that I'm going to have, we talked about this, Emma, in the Slack, where we're going to make sure that we meet the chocolate quota in terms of Jason has to say it a minimum of like every 15 minutes. So
yes.
I might have to buy you a bunch of stuff, Jason, but we'll do what we have to do to make it happen. So
I might have some bad news about the June 5th and 6th weekend.
Oh, no.
It won't be confirmed until next week, but
okay, that's okay.
That weekend might need to be changed.
I'll still go anyway if anybody
Well,
wants
you
to.
can still go, right? Like that weekend might need to be changed. The other weeks in June, but we're also going to add some weeks in October and December for Halloween and Christmas. So
cool.
we might end up losing the June weekend, but we'll make up for it with some weekends in the fall and early winter. But I won't have 100% confirmation of that until next week. But anyway, so
it's supposed to be positive issues, not depressing issues.
I know, right? I'm sorry. But anyway, now all this talk of chocolate world is gotten me distracted from the message at hand. And now people want Dollywood meetups.
So Brian, I'll go back. I'll kind of circle us back to DVC and talking about the flexibility that you were talking about with resale. So actually, that's the other kind of gamble that you can play. Like if you're not staying at your home resort and you are a full member that can book 11 months out at your home resort. For instance, when we went in August, I knew like just a week ahead of time that we were going to stay at the beach club because we were on a wait list and something opened up. So occasionally things happen like that. And I mean, of course, with people using their points, like because they have to, because they're hitting the end of their use years because of the pandemic and blah, 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 blah. This year, that might be a little more difficult. But that's another kind of a fun thing that you can play if you have, again, a younger family or an older family with, 20-something-year-old children, like myself, who can just kind of pick up and go whenever, you feel like going to Disney. So that's another positive thing about DVC that I will say.
So there are... there's a lot of positive things about DVC. I don't think we've been complaining a lot. One thing I do want to mention about Brian's tactic of renting points. So for a number of years, so we bought into DVC in 2000 with the expectation that we were going to get married in Disney in 2004. And so the plan was to bank and borrow points so that basically we could put up our whole bridal party in the beach club for our wedding.
Aww.
So we did that. I had like 7 rooms, 7 studios, plus a 1-bedroom booked at the beach club for like 3 or 4 days. 7, yeah.
7.
But I mean that was basically 3 years worth of points that we did that. But that was cool. And then so then after that, we would go semi-frequently, but we didn't always use all our points. And then in 2005, Disney did their first Panama Canal cruise on the Disney Magic. And that was something that I thought would be really super cool, and so we wanted to go on that. And so we weren't going to use our DVC points that year. And this ties into, Stephanie, what we were talking about with using points to book cruises and Adventures by Disney and things. So the cruise, remember, this is back in 2005. The 14-day Panama Canal cruise was about $1,600 per person, which is a ridiculous bargain. It was a ridiculous bargain in 2005. It'd probably be double now. But anyway, so what we did was we rented out our points, and I think we got $11 a point, and we rented out, I think we only rented 200 points, not 300. But we almost paid for the entire cruise by renting out a year's worth of DVC points. And so that worked out really well for us because that was our vacation. We weren't going to go to Disney again that year. But Disney you couldn't use DVC points to book that cruise. But you can usually use DVC points to book cruises. You can use it to book Adventures by Disney. But when you look at what the point value is, or the point requirements are to book a cruise on Disney Cruise Line using DVC points, and then you compare that to how much the cruise costs in cash, and you look at what your point rental rates would be, whether it's, back then it was $11 a point, now it's usually $17, $18, $19, $20 something dollars a point. When you look at the difference, your Disney is usually giving you maybe $7 or $8 or $9 a point to use your points to book a cruise. Whereas if you rented your points and rented them out for $20 a point, you could probably use half as many points, rent them out, get the cash, and pay cash for the cruise, or Adventures by Disney, or whatever for that matter. And this is
every hotel room.
Well, okay.
Right.
But I mean,
you can get every hotel room with DVC points.
You can almost get every hotel room. But you can book hotel rooms with DVC points too, right? You don't have to book a DVC room. You can book a regular hotel room. But again, it's a very inefficient use of your points. And really all you got to do is you just have to look at what Disney's charging you in cash versus what Disney would charge you in points to figure out essentially what Disney is giving you per point. And if you can do better in the rental market, it makes sense to go ahead and rent them. Now, I know that just like the Disney dining plan, a lot of people don't want to go through all that hassle. Right. And that's where Disney benefits, because Disney obviously benefits greatly when you use your points to book a cruise and they're giving you $8 or $9 a point, and can then turn around and take the rooms that you didn't book with those points at, Riviera, and rent out a room for $400 a night that cost 20 points that they basically gave you $160 for those 20 points. So Disney loves it when you use your points for cruises and use your points for Adventures by Disney, or exchange them for anything else, because all of those exchanges are a much worse value for your points than actually booking a DVC room.
Right. You're much better off going through a travel agent and doing those other things that you supposedly have perks to for exchanging them than using your points. Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm looking at, and this is what we were talking about earlier, Jason, I was looking at Adventures by Disney for next summer, so 2022, and doing a London and Paris trip, their combined trip there. Yeah, so we're excited, but it's going to be roughly $5,000 per person, right? Mm-hmm. And when I called DVC to find out about the points, it would be 648 points per adult and 700 per kid. Why the kids are more, I do not know. But that that is just astronomical. And so what I was
That's about $8 a point, right? I mean, that's pretty much what I said, $8 a point. Yeah.
So what I was trying to come up with, and this is my thought process, was going back to my DVC, my salesman, and I said, if my husband bought in, like a new contract, you get the points for this year, you get last year's points, and then you can borrow up to 50% of next year's points, which is what we did when we bought in 2015. We had that same system where we bought, that year's points. We had last year's points, and then we were able to borrow 100% of the following year's points, and we took a big trip to Grand Californian and Alani. So we did that, in 2016. Yeah, that was really cool too. But this does not. You're absolutely right. This does not make any sense to buy $25,000 when I could spend that money, on the trip itself. And
that and it would cost you, it would cost you 3,500 points to do that trip for the 6 of you, right? Like you'd have to buy a heck of a lot of points to be able to, even if you banked a year and borrowed a year, to get 3,500 points. That's a heck of a lot of points you'd have to buy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly the example that I was kind of alluding to, is that Disney you can use your points for these things that, as Emma said, Disney calls perks. Oops, where's my perks? Right. You can use your points for these things that Disney claims are perks, but really they're perks for Disney. Because they're really getting points from you for very cheap.
And it goes back to what Axel was saying about buying outright. I 100% agree with you. If you're going to do this, do it outright. Do not do the payment plan. Even if you put 20% down, you're still going to be at an interest rate of 12% or more.
Yeah, that's back in 2000 when we bought in, the interest rate for the financing was 10%. Which was still astronomical, right? So, I mean, they make it so that you can sort of figure out how to make it affordable. It's just kind of like the annual pass holder payment plan too, right? Like you're paying the same amount for your pass. They're just trying to figure out how to make it affordable so that you feel that you can do it. But
well, your annual pass doesn't come at 10% APR.
It doesn't. That's true. That's true.
So there's one thing that I wanted to address, and maybe a lot of people are watching that want to buy in on DVC. I was like a few years ago, we decided to, during our stay with DVC at the Polynesian, to stay a few nights at Universal. After the first night, the second, during the day, we come in the room, and I was already surprised, ooh, somebody broke into our room. What happened here? And I was like, oh yeah, room service. I forgot that existed. With DVC, you forget those things, because you can stay 5 nights and your bed will never be made. Never.
Right.
When you're lucky, your
unless you
will
pay
be
extra.
Out.
You have to pay extra for that
unless
extra
you pay
room.
extra, yes.
Right.
It's one of those things where...
One of the perks of a DVC room is that people don't break in every day and make your bed.
Yes, I love that perk. Having to make my bed myself on my vacation, that's the dream vacation for me. I cannot stand it if somebody touches my pillow. Could you imagine putting chocolate on it? Chocolate on my pillow.
Chocolate on your pillow.
What savage.
But hey, at least during COVID, though, you didn't have to worry about, extra exposure or possible contact or whatever. So it was a perk.
Is it wrong that I pictured Axel like George Costanza kicking his sheets because there was a tuck versus an untucked situation going on? Is it wrong that I was picturing Axel going?
No, not at all.
Cursing in 17 different languages that he speaks? Yeah.
I'm always very surprised when, and I mean, this is not about Universal, but it really hit hard the first time you do one of the better hotels in Universal, or even not even, let's say Cabana Bay, geez. the friendliness and the readiness. It's like Disney from the 90s again.
Yeah. Yep.
Something that I'm really missing right now. Right now with DVC, I feel like, hey, we got you money, so you can do whatever you want. I don't care. And it's not always the best feeling when you need to check in. You ask something. It's like always like, you need that. Are you really going to complain, DVC boy?
Yeah, actually, I have a story about when we stayed at the beach club and something happened. So here's the tea. My mother, God bless her, she accidentally left the mirror of the car open. Now we have a Prius, so mind you, there were going to be battery issues. So she left the mirror open because she was, using it for I don't know what, but anyway, and she left it open in the car so the light was on, and we didn't use the car because we could just walk to Epcot, obviously, for 5-6 days, I don't know, however long we were staying, and the car battery died. So we were panicking because, I had a flight back, I was fine, but the two of them, my mom and my dad, had to drive all the way from Florida back to our good old state of Maryland. Which, obviously, having the dead car battery, that kind of makes that a little difficult on our checkout day, mind you. So we go to the concierge, see what they can do. She says that there's something available, but only by cash. There weren't any rooms left that you could use with points that night. But she could move us to another resort. Well, obviously, that doesn't work. We have, dead car battery. We can't move the car, if it's until it's fixed. So then she was like, well, if you want to book with points, then you have to call DVC. And, same kind of thing on the phone for hours trying to figure this out. And, we go back to the concierge. And this was actually the night before, by the way, before our checkout day, technically, because we were loading up the car. But then they were like, oh, well, if there's something opens up for points, we'll call you by 11 a.m., which, by the way, is the checkout time for the room. So we would have had to leave. And, luckily, though, Car Care Center, I will say something positive because the Car Care Center was great. They were amazing. We had AAA come. They gave us a jump. Luckily it worked. We left the car on, drove it around for a little bit to see if the battery would recharge, and we turned it off and we were like, well, cross our fingers for the morning that it works, and luckily it did. We took it to the Car Care Center anyway to get it checked out to make sure everything was fine. Luckily we didn't need the battery replaced, but that checkup at the Car Care Center was free. Yes, it was. Thank God. Anyway, they were lovely people there. But anyway, luckily we didn't have any issues with the car battery, because if we did, God knows what would have happened, or where the two of them would have stayed that night, or how I would have gotten to the airport. So
I kind of like the way your parents think. Oh, our car battery's not working. I guess we got to stay another night. Like that, right? Like that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I guess we're going to be stuck here. Car battery's not working. I don't know what to do about it. We're just going to stay until I can figure it out, I guess.
Well, I mean, we couldn't get actually. So I didn't explain the part of that. We tried to get an appointment at a Toyota dealership. But we had to check on Friday, and they didn't have an appointment till Saturday, so that's actually where that came from. But yeah, sad. I know, have to stay another night at Disney. Anyway.
That makes the story much less fun.
One of the things I've learned is if you have any issue, and at the beginning it was not that clear, if you have any issue on your DVC stay, do not call DVC. Do not. Call your hotel.
Care.
They don't give a beep's ass.
Well, here's the other problem, is if you call the front desk at your hotel, you're not actually talking to someone at the front desk of your hotel. That's the
So
other
don't give them
problem.
your credit card number.
Well, don't do that. Yes, that's very true, too. That's very true, too.
Member service wait times is ridiculous. DVC member service.
It is. Yep. Everybody's getting crabby now. We've been at this for an hour and a half with all positivity, and now people are getting crabby.
Gotta spill the tea at some
to
point.
bring back more cast members.
Yeah, no.
Bring back more DVC cast members. And
when we bought into DVC, and our guide was like, well, if you walk around and you see somebody, ask if they're DVC, and they will tell you how great it is. So we're like, oh, you're DVC? Yeah, sure. Oh, it's great. If today I would walk around and somebody will come like, hey, you're DVC, how is it? Like, do you have a minute? Are you sure you want to spend the money? Because all of those things that they sold us on, a lot of those things are gone, are not there anymore. A lot of perks disappeared with hotels in general. But Moonlight Magic, one of those, even the paying events, what is it, $25, $30 for a Halloween event with way too loud of a music, but still, it's an event and it's only $30. Like, why not? So I hope these things are going to come back. I'm a bit afraid. It's like Disney in general. It's this pandemic has been a great time for them to get rid of things they never wanted to do because it was hurting them too much. And all of a sudden with this, he's like, oh, well, we haven't been doing this for a while. Like, if we don't bring it back, they will never miss it. So I hope it's not the same with DVC. I hope Moonlight Magic will come back. I mean, even within Moonlight Magic, we went from all you can eat hot dogs and chicken nuggets to here's a coupon and you got one meal. So line starts right here. We're still outside of the park. Yes, line starts right here. If you want food, this is the line. I mean, it's still better than nothing. But I hope it comes back because like now the perks, especially if you're an annual pass holder, are very much alike. And going from an international DVC member where I was happy to get all this to a local where, I mean, right now I have all the perks. I have the prices. I have the discounts. So I rarely pull out my DVC membership. And if they would sell Tables in Wonderland, I would never pull it out. So, I mean, we'll see what the future brings. But I'm afraid.
So
they are scheduling DVC member cruises, though. You know, they're scheduling them, but they're not going yet. So, hopefully.
Well, they're scheduling member cruises because that gets you to spend your points on cruises instead of DVC rooms, right? And we already talked about the value of using your points for a cruise, but there's also, let me say, there's also a bright side, and I appreciate all of the DVC members that spend their points on cruises because that's less points out there to be spent on resort rooms, which means all the members that spend points on cruises now can't spend the points on resort rooms, so it's easier for me to book a resort room. And so I wish they had member cruises like 3 times a month, because then everybody would go on them, and I'd be able to book it like 2 months out and get any room I want anywhere on property, right? So I 100% appreciate all of the people that spend their points on cruises or Adventures by Disney or whatever, because it is a way to take points out of the system. And that was always good to do before, but now since DVC had been closed for 3 months, there's 3 months worth of points in the system that are surplus, essentially, and that puts even more demand on the resorts. And so, yeah, I can't wait for cruises and member cruises to come back to take some of the strain off of the resorts so that it makes it easier for me to book DVC resorts. I mean, that's absolutely a thing that will help making booking easier, is all these member cruises and stuff coming back.
I will say, as somebody that's bought rental like points off of people, we've never had encountered any issues in terms of that even necessarily knowing that we're purchased on the secondary market in terms of rooms and stuff. So for us, it's always been oh, hey, welcome home, the whole thing, and everybody does, and you just do the whole thing.
I mean,
for us, it's for what we want it in terms of just the rooms. Like, it works for us.
Right.
But to your point, Jason, like, the cruise thing would be just literally like if you didn't own a calculator and you had like rocks and an abacus and you're trying to figure out if it was worth it, that'd be the only way you could actually purchase them that way. I don't understand numbers. Like, that would really be the only reason why you would do it if you weren't,
Yeah. I mean, which is why the DVC member cruise is such a fantastic thing for Disney, because you have to spend points on it, right? Like you can't buy that cruise with cash. You have to use points. And so Disney can charge whatever they want, and people will book those cruises up in a matter of minutes, right? Like those DVC member cruises book up faster than like park tickets at Disneyland after they've been closed for a year. That's how crazy DVC members are for these cruises. I've never been on a member cruise. I've been on cruises where DVC has activities. Like, I go to their trivia or whatever, the member mixer, and get free swag and stuff. I've never gone on a DVC only cruise, but I don't really kind of feel that I need to, especially not for the rates that they charge.
Right. I was going to say, again, like I said, you're better off going through a travel agent, the Vacationeer who sponsors this channel.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You're better off going through someone like them to book your cruise or Adventures by Disney rather than, using your points. You're going to save a lot more money that way because they have discounts that they have access to and can get you for your vacation.
That's right.
Always ask about onboard credit.
Yes.
That too.
Yep. Onboard credits. Is a good thing, or a lot of travel agents give you onboard credits or free little gifts in the room and stuff, which is cool. Can
I say something positive about the DVC rooms, Jason?
Yes.
So the DVC rooms, like Brian was saying, they are at the deluxe resorts, right? So if you stay at the Grand Floridian, it's going to be $600 a night if you buy directly from, just buy it off a Disney website, right? If you go through a rental company, you can get that for almost half.
Yeah.
Depending on when you go.
Between $300 and $400, right?
Between $300 and $400, exactly, for the DVC comparison room. Now, when you're talking about, now I know they're doing a lot of renovations, Polynesian, contemporary. That remains to be seen how well those look when they turn on. But
decals,
right? But the Grand Floridian hasn't been renovated in a while. So when you're talking about the hotel room versus the DVC room is gorgeous, and it has a split bathroom. So it has the tub shower combo in one side with the toilet, and then 2 sinks, and then a full shower, walk-in shower on the other side. So that's just a standard studio even has that. So there's a lot more. The room itself is smaller, but there's a lot more amenity to me, for our family at least, being able to have that split bathroom.
Yep.
The Polynesian shower is incredible.
Oh, yes.
The rain shower.
Don't even get me started about the Polynesian shower. Oh my God.
And then the other thing is, to your point about that side room, like when you have a family and you're dealing with a lot of different people, like one of the biggest things is trying to get out in the morning, like, or all right, when are we going to shower? You going to shower, then I'm going to shower, and then it becomes like, you're shuffling everybody around trying to figure it out. When you have that extra bathroom, even if it's at night where somebody's taking a shower, but then somebody else is brushing their teeth and everything else, like it just makes the flow of people in that room so much easier, especially when you have little ones. It's like, okay, let's go through our nighttime routine.
Absolutely.
Go through the whole thing. I'm taking a shower, my wife's getting the kids ready to go, and it makes, just to your point, like you wouldn't think it made that much of a difference, but it actually makes a gigantic difference in terms of just having that one bathroom where you're kind of climbing over each other. And that's how we used to do it, stay at the All-Star or whatever, and or even like a mid-grade kind of thing where we got to walk 9,000 miles to get to anything. Having that one bathroom is just a gigantic hassle.
And I'll put a plug in for Animal Kingdom and Bay Lake, because those are older rooms, but they actually, in the 1-bedrooms, have a second full bath. Mm-hmm. So you get a really good value, I think, even though Bay Lake obviously is the best value because you can walk to the Magic Kingdom. Yeah. But you get if you have a lot of kids, like you're saying, you have 2 full bathrooms. Then you're not sharing.
So the other thing, actually, I do want to talk about something else that's kind of positive and fun. We did this one time. We stayed with another family in a 3-bedroom grand villa at Bay Lake Tower. And that, like, if you can, you have a family friend and you both are DVC, or if the other person's going to pay cash and it's like a good price, maybe there's a discount, and you can combine to stay in one of those rooms, trust me, you will never forget it. Like, that is possibly one of my favorite hotel stays was that Bay Lake Tower stay.
Yeah.
Bay Lake Tower and Animal Kingdom, their 3-bedroom grand villa are the exact same layout. But it's just the kitchen is a bit different, and of course everything looks different. But they have like the upstairs and the stairs. It's the same layout, but they're pretty nice. But they're quite expensive in points as well. So you cannot underestimate the points you're going to get on that.
Yeah.
But if you have friends that all have like a DVC contract and you can work something out, that's pretty cool. Or one of the fun things, rent out a treehouse villa.
The treehouses are very cool.
Treehouse is very cool. It's not as big as a grand villa, but still,
it's like
it's
but it
neat.
rents for like a 2-bedroom, which is what it is. Which it sleeps 8. But treehouses are very cool. They're probably the most unique resort in Walt Disney World for sure. And they're kind of affordable. They're hard to get, but they're kind of affordable. I mean,
the bigger rooms at Vero Beach that are on the beach where you have this amazing view.
You mean the cottages?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're cool. They're very cool. I want to tell a story about DVC member events, because you guys complaining about the moonlight magic and this and that just made me think back to 2000. I want to say it was 2004. So 2004, we went in early December for Christmas, and we were staying at Beach Club and walking over to Epcot, and we knew there was a DVC thing going on because they told us when we checked in. So we're walking over to Epcot, and this was back obviously before the Skyliner existed. There was that sort of big open space where they built the Skyliner station. That was just kind of a big open space with nothing to do. And that's where they held the DVC member mixer, I think it was called at that point. So they put in a big row of those shrubs on wheels to make a sort of block it off, and there were some tables set up with snacks and hot chocolate and stuff, and you just had to show your DVC card and walk in. Like, you didn't book things ahead of time.
Yeah.
And it didn't cost any money. So we're like walking over, and I'm like, oh, hey, there's the DVC thing. We should go check it out. So we walked over, and I showed my card, and we walked in, and they had DVC Christmas ornaments they were giving out to everybody.
Aww.
And the hot chocolate and cookies. Yes, hot chocolate. But it was fantastic, and it wasn't crowded. There was probably like, I don't know, 50 people there or something like that. So we went and we had some snacks for like 10-15 minutes, and that was it. And it was cool, and we got the really nice Christmas ornaments. Came in a little velvet drawstring bag and all. I think we got a pin too. I think they had pins, like DVC member Christmas pins or something, I want to say. But it was cool, and it was sort of like this really neat low-key thing, and it wasn't, you didn't have to book in advance, and you didn't have to, fight your way in, and there weren't 5 billion people, and you didn't have to line up for your cookies and hot chocolate. It was a really nice thing, and then, DVC sort of expanded exponentially, and now there's like 50 times as many members as there was in 2004. And so they can't do those cool little things anymore. And it's kind of sad because that was like a really neat thing that, we didn't necessarily plan on. We just kind of happened to be there when it happened. And I'm like, hey, let's go check this out. But now they've got these Moonlight Madness, and it's pretty much like Moonlight Madness all morning to actually book it.
Right.
It's crazy sometimes. So, obviously there's a lot more resorts to stay at, and there's a lot benefits to having DVC be a much bigger thing. But there were a lot of benefits when DVC was a much smaller community, and that's one of them. Any more questions from the chat before we wrap this up?
Just a lot of chocolate in the chat.
I know.
That's
people
all I see.
love talking about chocolate.
I love it.
Chocolate.
Hey, gave people what they wanted. That's we want Spike the Bee and we want chocolate. If it was Spike the Bee eating chocolate, that was my hope for the Hershey part. Spike the Bee.
RJ asked a good question.
Yep.
RJ asked, "What is the future of DVC?" That's a good question.
That's a good question. Well, and we touched on this a little bit when we talked about what's going to happen when Old Key West contracts start expiring in like 10 years. And Boardwalk and Wilderness Lodge right after that. Honestly, I kind of think there have been DVC resorts on the drawing board that got canceled. Reflections was just the latest one, but before that there was going to be a DVC resort at Eagle Pines. And if you don't know what Eagle Pines is, Eagle Pines was a golf course that now that land contains Golden Oak and the Four Seasons. There was going to be a DVC resort at Eagle Pines. So there's been a lot of DVC resorts sort of announced and then either canceled or scaled back, or whatever you want to call what happened to Reflections was. It may be the case, and this is sort of focused on Walt Disney World. It may be the case that Walt Disney World is... There's an imbalance between the number of hotel rooms and the capacity of the parks. And I think it's probably been 5 years or so now. It's probably got hit to the peak in 2015 or so, where Disney can't really build more hotel rooms because the parks just don't have enough capacity for all those people. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people that stay off property and come to Disney parks too, right? But the problem is that those people pay full price tickets for the most part, right? Like the people that stay on property, and especially DVC members, are most often annual pass holders. The people that stay off property are most likely not going to be annual pass holders. And so you've got this issue, and this is what Disneyland was facing in the early 2000s and is facing now again, that there's way too many pass holders for the capacity of the parks. And there's way too many hotel rooms in Walt Disney World for the capacity of the parks. And so my thought is that I don't know whether Reflections will ever happen. I kind of hope it does. But I think Reflections might end up being the last DVC resort that gets built at Walt Disney World. Because unless they build another park, the park capacity just isn't there to support that number of hotel rooms on property. And so maybe Rob says maybe the new Epcot Hotel will have DVC. I don't know. I'd love it if it did. But
That'd be great.
I think if there's going to be more resorts built, I think they're going to be hybrid, like part DVC, part not. Like the Boardwalk is, like Aulani is, like Wilderness Lodge ended up being, even though it didn't start out that way. I think they'll build some DVC rooms at any new hotel simply because it'll give them more inventory to sell. But with Old Key West and all these other resorts expiring in the next 10 years, there is
actually Old Key West expires in 2042.
2042.
It's later than
so 11 years. think there is the potential for a huge sort of upheaval in terms of all of these contracts ending, and they're either going to have a giant, huge amount of points to sell, which maybe is a good thing. I mean, honestly, it's going to lessen the available points out there that can be used to book rooms. So this may be a good thing. But I think what's going to happen is they're going to accumulate so many contracts that expired from Old Key West and Boardwalk and Wilderness Lodge and Beach Club in quick succession, that they're going to end up having all of this inventory. 21 years at Old Key West. My math is not good today. They're going to have all this inventory that ends up being available for them to resell. So I don't think they're going to need any more resorts to sell, because they have all this inventory. They absolutely have the ability to get more inventory whenever they want in the resale market by just not letting resales go through and taking the points back. So that's my thought in terms of where it's going. I don't see, maybe reflections will happen, and maybe if there's new resorts built like the one at the Epcot entrance, I think there'll be some DVC rooms to it, but I don't see anything else in terms of new DVC resorts after that.
Mm-hmm. So we should wait 10 to 20 years to add on? We get a better deal?
Well, I mean, you might. Honestly, so here's my thought. And this, I think, is exactly the situation that you're in, Stephanie, and this is what I did. Buy resale. Because you already have the blue card, right? There's no point in you buying any more points directly from Disney. It's not going to get you any benefit, and it's just going to cost you more money. So the way for you to add more points is to go resale, and that's what I did at Polynesian. And we got I forget what we paid for Polynesian points, but it was a heck of a lot less than what Disney was asking for Polynesian points. And I mean, if you have the time and can watch the market and find a contract that's the same use year as what you have, then it can get merged into your current member number, so it's even easier. Because right now I have two different member numbers, and it kind of complicates things. Because, like, on the DVC website, there's actually a drop-down where I pick which membership I want to look at. So it complicates things. But, you know, even so, it's still way cheaper than buying from Disney. And so there are pretty much resale contracts out for every resort you want. You know, maybe not the points you want, maybe not the price you want to pay, but they're going to be less than Disney. And if you have time and are not in a super big hurry to buy, you'll get what you want eventually. And so, you know, that's the way I would recommend, if you want to add points, that's the way to do it. By far, that's the way to do it, because you don't lose anything. Mm-hmm. You don't. There's no reason. There's no reason for people that already bought from Disney. There's no reason to not buy more points resale. Really.
I've definitely looked into it, and I think you're right. I think Wilderness Lodge, Boulder Ridge in particular, and then of course Boardwalk are the two cheaper, if you will. You know. Yeah,
I mean they're also the ones that expire the soonest.
That's true.
Right. So. Yeah. You kind of have to weigh that. I mean, Vero's always been cheap at resale because their dues are higher, but, you know, now that it's so hard to book Vero, I'm kind of happy I have Vero points, you know? Like, if I could only plan 11 months out, I would. It doesn't work too good, but, you know, if I could, I absolutely would, and I absolutely would book Vero because otherwise it's very hard to do.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, to you know, to say the least, what happens with, you know, once Old Key West expires to see what Disney does with all of those things. Because I mean, there hasn't. I don't think there's been anything announced. I don't think we know for certain what exactly is going to happen with all of those contracts, all of those points. But you know, as far as like the possibility of new resorts, you know, being built, I kind of agree that there would have to be a fifth gate just to accommodate all of those people. And and maybe this is just wishful thinking, but as far as like new things that are coming to Orlando, we have confirmation that Epic Universe is coming to Universal. So one, in the future, that's going to take people away from Disney because they're like, oh, this brand new thing, Super Nintendo World, all these exciting things that are coming to Universal, they're going to want to spend time there. And Disney doesn't have anything new, or all these new things that they were going to have this year have been cut or canceled or indefinitely postponed, however you want to put it, it's been cut. So, I feel like they would have to have something big like that in response. If all this hype that's been talked about thus far with Epic Universe, happens to come to fruition, and it's this amazing thing. Like, Disney's going to have something to respond to that. And I think a fifth gate might be one of the only ways to do that. Anyway, that's my crazy theory, but.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Emma. I think the Nintendo World as well is going to pull from it. I think we've kind of watched that gap close. To Axel's point, Universal's really starting to step their game up. They've treated their annual pass holders better, and I think as a result, you're going to see. It almost seems like Disney's been responding to what Universal's doing. When it used to be the other way around, Universal was trying to copy Disney. And obviously a lot of those people left and went to work for Universal. And shock and surprise, all those really talented people that left Disney are kicking butt with Universal, and everybody's trying to play catch-up now. So I think once it starts to affect the stock, I think you'll really see a pushback. Once Universal starts to push, and then all of a sudden Disney – because right now Disney's riding high with their stock and everything else. They want to focus on their online streaming. But eventually that's going to hit a wall. And I mean, they're so good with Disney tech that I'm sure everything's going to be great with all these rollouts they have. So, they're going to hit a wall. And I think when that happens, then, it's one of those things where you can point to how great the stock price is. But the minute that stock price starts to drop, then you're going to see accountability run real high, and people are going to start going, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, we're not making money anymore. So I think based on what we're looking at with the economy and everything else, once that stock price starts to make a move one way or the other, they're going to get super reactionary and really have to make a bold move to try to generate some sort of buzz. I'm talking about Tron that's going to open at some point in 2020 is not going to do the job in terms of what we're doing. So I think that's really, that's the way I look at it, having a young family and everything else. And to Axel's point, he's right. You actually feel like you're not getting broken into. Oh, my God, somebody actually untucked my sheet. So I think that's an important point. I agree with him on that. So
for everybody at home, try and maybe, like you say, like with new things being added at Universal, instead of jumping from one Disney resort to another, try to get a Universal resort in there, just to check it out. I mean, I absolutely love Cabana Bay, especially the rooms with the volcano view. They're stunning. There's no feeling of being in a cheap or value or moderate resort. It's a cool resort to stay at. So are all the other ones. You can walk to the parks if you want, if you're up for that. Right now, what Disney had back in the days is losing to Universal, and the only thing Disney can respond right now is by carbon copy Paris and Shanghai. If there's something you don't need to do is copy Paris and Shanghai. But anyways, I mean, a lot of people will love that. I'm just saying, like, especially with DVC. DVC is a commitment to Disney. It's like it's more than an engagement ring, and you get that engagement to Disney. I'm still glad I did it. But I'm also really happy that from time to time I check out Universal and just see what they're doing over there, because you have people blindly taking the offense of Disney, and I love Disney very much. But then I see what's going on in Universal, and I see like there's some opportunities here, and there were things that Disney had back in the days they lost right now. And especially at this moment, going to any Disney hotel, restaurant, whatever, Disney is understaffed. At some point, their staff didn't have to come back. They laid off all those people. Those people, of course, are not going to stay in Orlando. It's freaking expensive. They go back home, and now all of a sudden they need more people. And those people say like, hey, we went home, and I'm not coming back to you. And you see that in day-to-day, cast members are just worn out. And you see that in the way how they act at work, how they are under pressure. And I feel for them. It's not their fault. But as a guest, I can feel that they're stressed. I can feel that they're overworked. I can feel that they are really being spread thin. And when I go to Universal, I don't have that feeling. So, I mean, besides Jason has a rant, I can have a rant for every 10 shows I'm on. Here you go.
Yay, Axel rant.
So I just noticed that Stephanie's wearing a Grand Floridian shirt. I didn't notice that until just now. That's cool. Did you get that recently?
No, this is very old. This is probably from when I worked there.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because they don't really make merchandise like that anymore. So that's exactly what.
And Jason, are you wearing a pink Tommy Bahama Mickey shirt?
It's not pink. I would call it like
salmon.
Peach, salmon. It's not pink. Like, are you colorblind? It's not pink. I bought this at the
very
Contemporary.
much pink from my side, yeah.
Well, you better change your color tint on your monitor then. I bought this at the
No,
Contemporary.
but it is that Mickey shirt, right?
It is the Mickey one. Yeah. No, I bought
that
this
one too. It's very much pink.
like they had Tommy Bahama 30% off, and then the 20% off pass holder discount on top of that. So
Nice.
it made it cheaper than
deal.
most Disney. It made this cheaper than most Disney T-shirts, honestly.
Truth.
Yeah. It's coral. Everybody in the chat is yelling coral. Yes. That's what
Sorry,
it is.
not
It's
sorry.
coral. Axel, what you said about Universal is I think exactly true. And a lot of people in the chat are saying before they open a fifth park, they need to get their first 4 parks in order, which is very true too. A lot of people were saying they'd like Disney to copy things from Tokyo, which isn't going to happen. What I'd like is I would love Disney to build a DVC at Tokyo. That's what I would like.
That would be the dream.
That would be spectacular. I would use that. I would go to Tokyo very often.
You actually you wouldn't be able to go. It'd just be Tom.
No, I
Steering your points.
well, that's fine.
Tom opening things. Look I can actually do this, and
I
Jason's
know,
just
right?
sitting there like,
Jason,
stole my points
you know
again.
that they did. You know that they sold DVC in Tokyo. They tried with Alani, and it didn't work. Now, I'm not saying it is working here because those points will be here for the coming 20 years.
Yeah,
but they did try it, and the Japanese are not really into the whole timeshare concept, and it never took off.
Oh no, I'm not. I totally don't want them to build a DVC in Tokyo and sell it to Japanese people. I want them to build a DVC in Tokyo and sell it to me. Like,
I mean,
no.
they can build one in Paris.
They could, but nobody wants to go to Paris.
Paris is the most beautiful park, and you know it.
It is. I totally agree. It doesn't mean people want to go there. People still don't want to go there. I do. I love it.
I would go back. I would love to go back.
Yeah. No, I love it. I would go back to Paris. The problem is I think I'll be allowed to go to Tokyo before I'll be allowed to go to Paris.
Actually, that's probably true.
But anyway, I think so. What I want to do in the last couple seconds is throw out there what Axel talked about with Universal. We've kind of hit on shows here and there over time, and I wonder if people would like us to do a more in-depth show about Disney versus Universal. Like, when there's a slow news week and we don't have much to talk about, we could sort of delve into this Disney versus Universal thing. Because I've spent a lot of time at Universal in the past year.
Me too.
And I like it. We're going to go back. I'm taking my family. I took my family in June of last year, and we bought annual passes. And we spent like 4 days out of the week in Volcano Bay and had a blast.
Volcano Bay.
I know, right? So I'm bringing my family back in June of this year, and we're going to spend a lot of time at Universal because we have the annual passes. Disney won't sell us annual passes. I booked 4 nights at Sapphire Falls for cheaper than Cabana Bay. I wanted Cabana Bay, and Sapphire Falls was cheaper. So I booked 4 days at Sapphire Falls because I've never stayed there. Now that we're all vaccinated, we're going to go to SeaWorld. There's a lot of stuff to do. What? Don't
Jason,
judge me.
Don't
judge me.
I'm not judging you.
Injections. You need more vaccinations than just COVID to go to SeaWorld.
I got tetanus.
It's like taking a trip to Africa.
I got tetanus. I got rabies. I got yellow fever. What else do I need?
Flu shot, all the things.
Axel, he said he was going to SeaWorld, not Fun Spot.
Oh no.
It just the difference is one shot.
One shot. But anyway, so but we're gonna spend a lot of time at Universal, and we're gonna spend some time at SeaWorld because I think the more Disney sees that I'm not going to their parks, it's kind of like a shot across the bow, right? Like I'm giving them notice. Like, I'm not coming to your parks because I'm not paying your ticket prices, and you stop selling annual passes. So, okay, bye. It's not Disney does not have the power they once had in the theme park market in Orlando, and they need to be told that. And I think they're going to learn that probably the hard way. I'm just
Jason,
kidding about that shot across the bow thing. Anyway,
the whole last month there wasn't any availability on weekends. The weekdays are getting harder to get in the Disney parks. Spread your message, please. I want to go back to Disney. Spread your message. Everybody's going. It's impossible to go.
I mean, it's because it was spring break.
Right.
Yeah, but still, this weekend there was nothing. Eric tried to do a live, and he just couldn't get in.
I think it's going to be bad the whole summer. Honestly, I don't think it's going to get good until September in terms of availability.
Aren't the bookings way down now? Somebody said the bookings are way down. It's an absurd amount, which I don't know if I necessarily believe.
But who knows?
But I mean, like locals though, with tickets though and stuff, you have a lot of people who have day tickets and things that are going to expire, and they have to use them by the end of this year. So, of course, there's going to be a huge influx this summer, or like from the spring break season going into the summer, because that's when most people can go, especially if they have kids when school is not in session.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think it's going to be a bad summer at Disney. I do. Probably will sort of get lighter in the fall, but which is also why I think they're not going to bring back any fireworks or anything during the summer, because they don't need to.
No, not till the 50th, especially like if Ratatouille is the big thing that they're opening. I don't think we're going to see any nighttime stuff until the 50th.
No.
Yeah,
no.
Harmonious.
Which is another reason why I'm really not interested in going to any Disney park, because I'll just sit and look at my Main Street Electrical Parade fiber optic display 36 inches tall and 36 inches wide. I'll just look at that and play the music and be happy. Or I'll go to Tokyo.
Yes. People in the chat were saying yes, though, to a Disney versus Universal show. So people seem interested.
I think it's a good idea. I think we should do it next week or not. Well, not next week. So next week we'll be back to a regular format, but David Smith will be hosting because I will be in Orlando, probably out having drinks with Axel.
And Pete.
I don't know why you put the probably there. You know there won't be a problem. There will be drinks.
There you go. But so that'll be so in 2 weeks we'll come back and we'll do news. But we can certainly do a Disney versus Universal show at some point over the summer, probably. Are there still rumors about replacing the host for pressing issues permanently? I wish there was. I wish.
Oh no, Jason, no!
I'm kidding.
I'm only here for the Diffendahl rant. If you're not here, it better be you or Jill.
I'm kidding.
Better hear a Jill counter. Not enough cast members to take my money. Getting Wishables rant again because that was awesome. I have money. I want to give you money. Where are you people? That was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'll have a trip report when I get back. There will be, but I don't know how much time I'm going to spend in Disney anyway when I'm there. But in 2 weeks, Desi will be back from Aulani, and she's going to talk to us about Aulani. So that will be cool.
Aloha, Desi, if you're watching.
She was watching early in the chat. She said aloha from Aulani. I don't know if she's still watching, but yeah. So if you could press that like button before you go tonight, that would be greatly appreciated. And thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this DVC episode. Yeah, so tune in next week for more Disney news and pressing issues and depressing issues. And yeah, I will be signing contracts for the new studio. Well, I don't have to be in Florida to do that, but hopefully that will happen in the next week or so. But the new studio is part of the reason why the June 5th and 6th Hershey Park weekends might have to get postponed. But anyway, we'll come back with the definitive word on that next week. The new studio is located in Celebration.
Ooh, nice.
Hatbox Ghost was asking. But thanks everybody for watching. Please hit the like button before you go. Subscribe. Head on over to our entertainment channel, WDWNT Entertainment, at youtube.com/WDWNT Entertainment, of all things.
Or just go to WDWNT.tv.
Or do that.
There we go.
And subscribe over there for all other great shows. Tune in tomorrow night. Tomorrow night for Cosmic Read Live. And if you're a WIGS member, you'll get the Cosmic Read Live post shows.
Carousel of products. Don't forget.
Check out
shirts.
Carousel of products. You can see our Rise, Resist, Repeat shirt. The cast member panther shirts. I don't know if there's any of those left. Our newest shirt.
All sizes of the green.
Okay. Our newest shirt is a Nautilus shirt. And it says "Let's get naughty," which is kind of cool.
It's great.
Somebody just put 700 B emojis in the chat.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so Cosmic Read tomorrow, Deep in the Plus on Tuesday, Park Center Wednesday, WDW News Tonight on Thursday, and I will be live in the studio for that this week.
Woohoo!
I don't know what happens on Friday. Oh, there's an unboxing on Friday where Jill and I will be live in Eric's kitchen for another live unboxing. Yes.
Live jilling. Yes. I love it. Live jilling.
Live chilling. Yeah.
We have wishables.
I just want to say I was the first one that said that in chat.
You were the one. You coined that term.
I
give you
credit.
I will give you credit for that term.
I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'll take credit for that one.
All right. And so, I think that will do it. But I hope everybody liked this DVC chat this week. And if you want us to do more sort of like special chats when there's not a lot of news to talk about, certainly send me messages and we can see if we can do that. But I think the Universal versus Disney one is a good one. So, yeah, I like that idea. All right, so that's it for tonight. Thanks to Axel and Stephanie and Emma and Brian for being on the panel tonight. Thanks all of you for tuning in and sticking with us for the past over 2 hours now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I know. We're late today.
Went by fast.
And so the last thing I will say is that if you don't like Spike the Bee, I would suggest you turn off your internet right now. Otherwise,
or if you do like Spike the Bee, put more bee emojis in the chat.
Put more bee. If we get 10 more bee emojis, I'll play Spike the Bee. How about that?
Oh my gosh.
Let's see how this works. We'll probably get like 600.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Oh, there we go. All right.
So many.
All right. Everybody who doesn't like Spike the Bee has been warned. You should tune out now. Otherwise, we're going to sign off. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Check WDWNT.com for all your Disney news 30 times a day. And we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
When I find myself at Flower and Garden, looking for some food to eat, I gotta get a spork with Spike the Bee. 58 pallets of unsold units standing right in front of me. Here for his 5th straight festival, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee. Perfect for any food type, Spike the Bee. And while it's good for soup and chili, Spike the Bee. Plastic forks and spoons are wasteful, and they can't ever hope to be that versatile festival flatware, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. For blood orange margaritas, Spike the Bee.
How do you eat that with a spork?
Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. Disney hopes you'll finally purchase Spike the Bee.
Have a good night, everyone.
Woohoo!